artificial intelligence is its own agent. It decides what it wants to do. So here is this very powerful knife, and we don't know whether it's going to cut better salad for us or it's going to kill some of us or perhaps all of us.
We are kind of fascinated by all the stories that both humans and AI are telling us. My interests lie at the edge, at the fringes, not at the middle. So it lies at where the intersections are. Each of the AIs that we have out there are referred to as chatbot. And I think chat is the shallowest form of conversation. The underlying principles of a dialogue is that there has to be mutual respect and an open mind.
Please listen to the people who haven't been contaminated by technology yet.
Today, the best scientists, best mathematicians, more than scientists, the best mathematicians become AI people. AI is mathematics, period.
Jaspreet, what a joy to be with you again. The last time we were physically together and talking deeply was up above Rishikesh with the Ganges flowing by and having a dialogue about artificial intelligence. But mostly you wanted us to concentrate, though all the people around knew quite a lot about artificial intelligence and the latest state of it, and some were into philosophy. And you wanted the philosophy part to be discussed, the ethics of artificial intelligence. And it seemed you were having a hard time. The technologists wanted to jump back and to discuss the latest in technology and get on with it. What is all this other stuff? They were, I must say, they were very deeply interested and contributing to the discussions on philosophy and ethics. So the difficulty seems to be to create spaces in which people are not distracted by the current excitements. And unfortunately, technology itself is the driver of the excitement through its platforms and through its constructs of how to construct a conversation, and then AI is, I think, exaggerating all of it. And right now, I'm sure many people want to hear from you about what's happened in the last 72 hours, the hyper excitement in AI about this thing called DeepSeek, which has suddenly emerged from China, and Stargate, this huge $500 billion amount of capital put together to finally kill the Chinese in the race. And here comes out this DeepSeek. And with a very little amount of capital, it seems to have caught up. And some say it's ahead. But that's a discussion I know you're going to be having with lots of people. So the discussion about the technologies themselves, I suggest we don't dwell too much on it in our conversation, though there will be occasion, I'm sure, to bring them in. The questions that have been arising in the last 72 hours after DeepSeek has startled the world of AI is well, how could the Chinese do this with so little resource, so little compared to the American side, so little capital investment and so little technology hardware chips? How could they do this? Because the idea is that, it takes a lot of muscle and a lot of capital to create new things which will have an impact. So that's question number one, which is, I think, on everybody's mind. But then they're jumping very quickly, the people, especially on the market side, is about the effect this startling development has had on the whole capital markets and on the valuations of NVIDIA and consequences for SoftBank and its investments, etc. It's really upended and confused the markets, the capital markets. And the third, of course, the biggest underlying thing is the effect on geopolitics, because we have to remember that Musk and Trump and suddenly all the people who were talking about free speech, and then we'll have good moderation on our platforms, whether it was Facebook and others, all behind Trump at his inauguration, including Google, of course. So there they are, they're all together about American power. Technology, stay ahead, American power. So the effect of this announcement by China on geopolitics, on capital markets. And then, of course, within it is, well, what is happening in the technology itself. So right now, Jaspreet, I told you that when I want to invite you to this conversation, I was remembering the atmosphere of the dialogues in Rishikesh, and then thereafter you said you're going to Kerala to do some meditation on the state of the world. And I've been thinking also about the state of the world. And I was reminded of Lewis Carroll's, he wrote Alice in Wonderland, his poem, The Walrus and the Carpenter. The opening lines have kept on coming back to me. When the walrus said to the carpenter, they're walking along the sea, the time has come to talk of many things, of ships and sails and sealing wax, and whether pigs have wings, or whether artificial intelligence has wings. I'm just humorously putting it. We have to talk about many things. Global security. Well, as it is so insecure, the wars that have been breaking out, civil wars, wars between countries, just devastating the world. And technology, like nuclear technology, is something that everyone has been fearing in the past could, getting into the wrong hands, destroy the world. And now we've got an even more unknown and in many ways a more powerful technology that is in artificial intelligence. And the whole fight is about who's going to control it, who's going to take charge of it. The global trade system has broken down, no question, with Donald Trump using the US power and threatening people with sanctions. Then the global climate crisis, of course, is predating all of this. There was a lot of concern, has been for the last 20 years since the summit in Rio, about what are we going to do collectively to improve the global commons, that is our global environment, our global climate. And clearly, collective human intelligence is at the moment unable to solve these problems. Collective human intelligence is unable to solve these problems. So some people have been hoping or suggesting that maybe AI will, that sort of intelligence will solve the problems for us that we've been unable to solve together. And here Noah Harari, who has been writing deeply about the consequences of artificial intelligence on the future of the world, he recently said that, a knife is an instrument, and whether the knife cuts salad or the knife kills a person, that decision lies in the hands of the person who's got the knife in hand. With artificial intelligence, we are beginning to feel that artificial intelligence is its own agent. It decides what it wants to do. So here is this very powerful knife, and we don't know whether it's going to cut better salad for us or it's going to kill some of us or perhaps all of us. So that's about the concern we have, and therefore we come to the walrus and the carpenter walking along there and say, the time has come to talk about many things. What is shaping our world? What force is really in control of the world? And what is the world that we want to create together? So this needs, I would say, an understanding of the world through many, many perspectives. The perspectives of people who don't think like us, the perspectives of people who fear us, and perhaps people we fear. All together, we compose the system that somehow willy-nilly collectively is guiding the world. You can talk it about as an invisible hand is doing it, but you want to take charge of that invisible hand now and say, stop doing what you're doing, and let's take charge about our own destiny and control the technologies that are, getting out of control. So that requires a dialogue, meaning that understand different perspectives deeply. And a dialogue is what? And so the subject we're going to talk about is dialogue. Then we're going to talk about, overall, it's about the public good. Can we improve the technology of dialogue, apply the technologies of dialogue to help improve the public good? And could artificial intelligence help to improve the dialogues, or is it just going to take over the dialogue? In fact, technology already has taken over the dialogues amongst people in social media. So you had said, look, it's a very big subject, this walrus and the carpenter thing, and we have less than an hour. So you suggested, and you're a very thoughtful person, so don't pretend that you don't know what I'm talking about or we want to talk about. You've been to Oxford, where you have done
Then I need to
Cambridge.
interrupt.
I know you keep saying, see, what does it matter? Oxford is a little older, I'm told. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So what came first doesn't matter. You went to a good place where the point is the program you went for the year that you spent, that was not studying where artificial intelligence itself is going, but about, I think, something to do with ethics. And there was a lot of philosophy um, that you discussed with other people. And so here you are, Jaspreet, and again cautioning you. I know that all of us get tempted to ask you about what's happening in the last 72 hours, the DeepSeek and the Stargate, and you are being drawn by me onto questions that are on my mind too. It's about the governance of the world and the role of good conversations, dialogues in helping us to collectively shape a better world. You very kindly, that's the way you are, you put it down and you gave me like these almost 5 bullet points that we should talk about in the 1 hour as a way for you to be able to engage me in this dialogue. And the first you said, let's talk about dialogues. And I have questions like, what is a dialogue and why do we need more of them? And then you mentioned plurality, and that is your own logo, Plurality Dialogues, Rishikesh Plurality Dialogues. And so we'll talk about, what are the many dimensions along which there are significantly different points of view and points of view that should be included in and listened to in dialogues about where the world is heading. So plurality in the dialogues. The third is, I could see that you couldn't resist it, and I'm also very curious, emergent properties. And maybe you tell us about the emergent properties of AI. And then the subject that is the main subject, I guess, is governing AI. Governing AI. And so we have to consider what is good governance and what role can plurality dialogues amongst human beings play to improve the governance of AI. And finally, because we must talk about what AI can do, can AI, powered with its emerging properties, enable people to understand each other, or will AI make dialogues unnecessary? So the 5 points. So is it okay? This is your agenda. Fine. But I'm going to do a fair amount of the questioning, and we will, of course, you will be questioning me, so it'll be a dialogue. So talking about dialogues first, what is a dialogue and how is a dialogue different to a discussion or a chat?
Thank you very much, Arun. It's fantastic to be here. It's an honor and a privilege. It was fun in Rishikesh when you so kindly consented to be there and participate. And now, the only thing I would say is that it's a little bit of a reversal in roles. It would be I who would want to actually ask you a lot of questions. But again, as I said, I'm honored that you're the person who's asking me, and therefore, you're saying that there is something that I can share with you. And obviously, we'll do this as a dialogue, so I don't lose the opportunity of picking your brains also as we go forward. There's a lot that you talked about in your as you set this up, Arun, and every time that you were saying something, there was a thought which was flashing in my mind. But I just before I got to your question, just a couple of things. So, one is The Walrus and the Carpenter has been one of my favorite poems from the very. And in fact, when I left Microsoft, I remember when I wrote my farewell mail, it was written using the Wallace and the Carpenter as a crutch. Okay, I kind of wrote that as an email. And in this particular context, Arun, it's very interesting that you talked about, AI and things to talk about it, and the Wallace and the Carpenter, and whether AI is going to do good or bad. But remember, in the poem, both the walrus and the carpenter were really doing everything just to mislead the oyster so that they can eat all of them at the end. I just hope that that's not what, in a sense, AI also, does for us, or the people who are controlling AI do that for us. That eventually it's all about a winner takes all game, and they are the walruses and the carpenters, while all of us become the oysters. I mean, that's one of the that's one of the thoughts that was, and the loaves of bread that Lewis Carroll talks about are possibly these AI tools, okay, which attract and the stories. And actually, they attracted all the it says somewhere in the poem, it's been long, it says, and all the oysters stood in a row to
Mhm.
listen to the stories of the walrus and the carpenter. And think about it, actually, they were entranced, they were fascinated by these stories. And that's what, we are, in a sense. We are kind of fascinated by all the stories that both humans and AI are telling us. And, we just can't get enough of it. And, hopefully in this trance that they have put us, we don't get eaten up. But that's the
Mhm.
thought that came to me
Mhm.
during the Walrus and the Carpenter. And the other thing, uh,
Mhm.
while I obviously am I'm not as deep into the technology of AI as much as I am into the possibilities of it. But as I think I probably spoke at Rishikesh and with you in separate conversations, my interests lie at the edge, at the fringes, not at the middle. So it lies at where the intersections are, whether the
Mhm.
intersections are with philosophy or the intersections are with uh,
Mhm.
history or with humanity or with
Mhm.
geopolitics or with some of the other things you said.
Mhm.
So I'm very happy that we are talking about those. I've
Mhm.
anyway been sick of talking about DeepSeek and the core of it
Mhm.
in the last few days. And in fact, I'm doing that in another 30 to 40 minutes from now.
Mhm.
So very
Mhm.
happy to talk about
Mhm.
the other parts. But now coming to your specific part on the dialogues, it's
Mhm.
very interesting. When you first put that down in that email to me, I was
Mhm.
like, how can I contextualize it there are the dialogues of Plato, I think, or Aristotle, I've forgotten. But if I kind of keep that aside, or even at the Aristotelian dialogues and questioning dialogues, how can I contextualize it in form, with AI and especially generative AI? And it's interesting, but each of the AIs that we have out there, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, are referred to as chatbots.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, they aren't referred to as dialogue bots.
Mhm. Mhm.
They aren't even referred to as discussion bots. Okay, they
Mhm.
are actually chatbots. And I think chat is the shallowest form of conversation, okay,
Mhm.
that a human being can have.
Mhm.
Okay, so where it's that's where the
Mhm.
chit chat part comes out.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Mhm.
it's a shallow, to use an Indian colloquialism, it's a time pass kind
Mhm.
of a thing. But I think one step deeper than that is a conversation, okay, where
Mhm.
you're more involved rather than just a shallow chit chat.
Mhm.
But I think then the deepest is a dialogue,
Mhm.
where you are kind of where you are going beyond, beyond just the appearance to actually being deeply cognitive, bringing your
Mhm.
emotions into it,
Mhm.
and actually trying to
Mhm.
do a dialogue towards
Mhm.
towards an end,
Mhm.
towards some kind of a
Mhm.
solution.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
I think that in the AI world, I believe that very few dialogues happen. A
Mhm.
lot of chat happens, a lot of directives happen,
Mhm.
many sometimes discussions happen. But I
Mhm.
think in most of those discussions, the end results are preordained or
Mhm.
pre-thought. Okay,
Mhm.
and the discussion papers are happening just to,
Mhm.
give the fig leaf in a sense and a semblance. And so I
Mhm.
think dialogue it always, I think one of the key underlying principles of a dialogue is that there has to be mutual respect and an open mind. And I
Mhm.
don't think either of that is true, especially
Mhm.
in this AI world where these big
Mhm.
tech bros, the Sam Altmans or the Elon Musks, etc., clearly consider themselves superior to the rest of the world, and
Mhm.
therefore are talking down to all of us rather than having a dialogue with all of us. And
Mhm.
therefore, the AIs they design, I think, follow the same principles.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's not going to. And in that context, just to conclude, and though I didn't want to bring it in that context, I think something like a deep seek, okay, is disruptive. Okay, it what it does to the technology is one part, Arun, but I think it will have a substantial effect on the egos of these people. Okay, that it's actually going to pull down and hopefully bring it to the level where it'll be more democratized. So I see DeepSeek actually as a very democratizing influence, and dialogue hopefully will be a part of it. So I'll stop here. There's a lot more that I
You
could
will
talk.
come back to that. It's very good that I said the fifth
Yeah.
question that you suggested we should discussed the last and fifth is, can AI, powered with these emerging properties, maybe which DeepSeek is bringing up, enable people to, but I was putting it, understand each other. Okay. Um, so I'm going to come back to dialogue, just stay with dialogue. And dialogue is something that I have been researching, observing, helping people to get into dialogues and so on. And I did put down my thoughts about dialogue and about listening, actually, because the essence of dialogue is to listen to
Sure.
someone else, to listen to someone who doesn't think like you, to patiently, calmly enable another person to explain their point of view or explain the world from their point of view. From their point of view. So I wrote this book about listening to people not like us, conversations with people not like us. So listening for well-being is the title of the book. And the behind me is the picture of myself with the Dalai Lama in the middle, and the then Vice Chancellor of the university in Dharamshala, of which I was the Chancellor. And the Dalai Lama, as you know, we all know that he's been encouraging and organizing dialogues amongst scientists and spiritualists and monks and physicists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very well. So the Dalai Lama kindly, having read my manuscript, wrote a foreword to my book. Because he said the essence of being a human being is listening
Wow.
deeply to another human being. So I, in that book, have put out, you mentioned chat to conversation. I had
Mm.
the two C's. I had four D's: discussion, debate, deliberation, and dialogue. And what's the difference between these four? Discussion, as you said, anything, we are in discussion. But what's the form of the discussion? Is it really a understanding of each other, or you're just, rapidly saying things? And a chat is or even worse. But it's a similar thing, I'd say. But discussions can be getting deep into things. So we talk about then the form of the discussion. A debate is what we are taught uh, to do well, is speak your point of view very well so you can get it across and others can understand you. And maybe that's a good way to say the why you should be speaking clearly and well. But we are taught, like say, debating in school or college is to win something, be a better debater than another person. So in the debate, the debaters are not wanting to understand another person's point of view. They want to trip the other person to say, what you were saying doesn't make sense, and say something funny about the mistake the other person make, and you'll make a fool of the other person. So in debates, it is about really, it's about winning, and preferably by putting someone else down. So as the Navajo Indians say, that they talk about it in terms of a debate only. They say, in a debate, hmm, the debate will never end. If you keep debating, it will never end, because the losers are going to come back with some other facts and arguments and argue with you. And in this thing, I have been very, very influenced long before I came to wanting to understand what debates and dialogues are about, is Peter Drucker, uh, the great management thinker and a philosopher. And Peter Drucker, I got to read him because I joined Tata's as a TS chappie, not knowing any management. And I had to, suddenly be responsible for very complex systems. And well, management is the way to sort of manage your system. So Peter Drucker's books are very readable,
Mm.
philosophical and very readable. And Drucker had said in one of his books, I think The Effective Executive, that, and Drucker was consulted by presidents of the USA, several, and in Europe also heads of government, and of course the heads of General Motors, Fords, and what have you. I mean, they would treasure to get an hour with him, and of course, quite often they had only an hour to give. And Drucker said, I always begin my conversation by asking the other person his opinion. I never want them to start getting to the facts. Whereas all these busy people say, well, let's talk facts. Like Narayan Murthy, his slogan in Infosys is, only God is allowed to have an opinion. The rest of us must bring the facts to the table. And Drucker's point was this, and he said so. every person with a strong opinion, especially a strong, powerful person, can search and find the facts to support his opinion. So you'll end up with two persons debating, both sides with facts, but facts that they have chosen to support their opinions. So what is a deliberation then? A deliberation is something in which we say there are many things that none of us is certain about collectively, or none of us is certain about individually. And the ego must come there, that I'm not more certain than you. If you say the world is not certain about it, but I am, let me tell you, you come back, as you say, to the people, experts on the top. Unless we get into that discussion in the form of this deliberation with this attitude that I don't know it yet and I don't know enough, and therefore I need to listen to others who have another perspective, may bring other facts into the discussion. So we are deliberating together, and the deliberation has a purpose, that we're deliberating to come out with options, let's say, and then we get the facts to compare the consequences of choosing one option or another. And that the bringing in facts comes after the deliberation chooses what we should find the facts about. And we collectively agree, as a collection, we don't understand this subject and that subject. Let's now get the experts to bring the information to us of their respective subjects. And experts work in silos. But we, the persons who are together in the deliberation and in charge of how the deliberation is progressing, we are inviting the experts, the ones we choose and about the subjects we choose, because we understand that that subject is something we need to know more about in the context of the overall problem that we have collectively agreed we want to solve. So that's a deliberation. It's already coming into the need to listen to many perspectives. But what is a dialogue? And that is where the Dalai Lama is such a good expert. Is I'm just listening to another human being. And as you know, he smiles, he laughs, and he explores questions. So in a dialogue, we are not interested just in the what is being said, which a debater pays a lot of attention to. We are interested also in why it is being said and be respectful of the why. And the why comes from the different perspectives of people. This is why they have chosen these facts. This is why they have this opinion. And finally, though, if you listen to someone's story and you talked about stories, why does this person believe this is more important than that? You begin to know another human being, a human being who's as fine in their ability for systems thinking as a child or any human being is, except that we experts are taught not to think of the whole system as a system, but to get down to our expertise and then keep promoting that our expertise provides a solution to the collective problem. And this is, I'm relating back what you said about the technologies. They're in their echo chambers and say, we'll find the solution, we'll find the better technology, and you people better use the better technology because we know. And then amongst the technologies, as you pointed out, the chaps who have the more capital are going to even control that conversation and that development, as Stargate was attempting to do. But here we got a little thing, and it's disturbed that idea that the power lies with the people who are presently in charge, who presently have the resources. Other people can disrupt the power and change the conversation. So those are my thoughts, and I was putting them to frame it to come to the next thing I wanted to ask you about plurality. We're already talking about it. If you wish to be understanding a very complex situation problem, you need many perspectives to understand the system, many lenses through which people see things. And the lenses are our beliefs. The beliefs grow up in our own growing up, and we get embedded in a particular way of thinking and thinking it is the best and right. And so we all come in with our own lenses into a discussion, which we want to now make into a dialogue, the lenses that we bring in. So if you are talking presently about the question about artificial intelligence and its linkage, connection with the governance of the world regarding climate, regarding poverty, regarding inequality, regarding the contest between capitalism and socialism as systems of governance. For this dialogue, what are, to your mind, the essential dimensions, the critical dimensions around which there are differences of opinion, like socialism, capitalism, perhaps, hmm, um, other than technology that needs to be included in the dialogue?
So, Arun, I mean, if I may be very honest, I haven't thought very extremely deeply around all the dimensions. But there are some dimensions that I'm particularly passionate about. Okay, and that's what kind of resulted in the name plurality also, frankly. Okay, so one of the things which, one of the things I do is that I'm associated with something called Singularity University, and that's in the Bay Area. And they talk about frontier tech, etc. And Singularity University is actually a very good encapsulation of the valley. It's one of those techno optimist, exponential growth. Technology will solve everything. The accelerationists, as they call them, etc. So it's kind of like there, right? It's kind of, and they call it singularity because of the AI linkage, which is that when AI will become whatever. But I used to think of it's called singularity because they have a singular point of view.
Yes.
Okay, a very singular point of view. Uh, now, so that's one part. Then if you cut to my work at Cambridge on AI ethics, my stated purpose, which I did follow also, my stated purpose to do that course was because everything that I'd read around resolving all these issues around AI were was were I could see that they were being tried to be solved through very predictable means, which is, okay, there are these Western schools of philosophy, for example, there's utilitarianism, consequentialism, Immanuel Kant's work, or Aquinas' deontology, etc., etc. And so, which school of and philosophy should we follow? And, there's the famous trolley problem, and therefore, how do you apply it to the trolley problem? And, different schools will take different things, etc. There was a bit of cultural part there, but it was like, sure, you'll have to make some allowances for different cultures, but, this is what it is. And so my deal was that, again, it to me was a singular view of thinking. Okay. And therefore, I mean, in some sense, rightly so, most of the AI work was happening in a part of the world, and therefore people will think that way. But that was, people living in a bubble, kind of thinking along that, and trying to, address the problems around AI with a very narrow viewpoint, a singular viewpoint, in my view. And so, therefore, the concept of plurality, okay, which is, while difficult to pronounce, basically means that, the way I looked upon it was, yes, it was a riff of the Singularity University name, but also that you need plural points of view, okay, and not singular viewpoint, okay, and a lot of the plural points of view which were missing, okay, were the Eastern points of view, okay, were the indigenous points of view, were alternative economic systems points of view, okay, were alternative demographics points of view, okay, and there's a host of different, even in fact, yeah, alternative justice systems points of view, okay, because this was all basis a certain kind of, culture, demography, etc., etc. And therefore, my work dissertation at Cambridge was a very small effort that I brought in a small part of what was never, and it was I was astonished that actually in all the literature, and we used to spend time just looking at literature and trying to find literature. All the literature that I could find, there was nothing where an Eastern thought, other than some work in China for obvious reasons, okay, other than some Confucianism, etc., because China is such a power in AI and there's so much research, etc. There was nothing which had kind of brought anything, whether it be Indian thought, Hinduism, Buddhism a little bit, but Taoism, Shinto, so many other points. There was a little bit work done on Ubuntu thought, but then other than Ubuntu, all of Africa was a black hole. Okay, and so I tried to kind of bring in one thought, which was the Dvaita Vedanta, and again one part of AI, which is privacy. And frankly, my paper was lauded for its originality, but because no one could understand it, was marked fairly low. Okay, in the whole scheme of things. But that work and that thought and that perspective is what kind of, combined with the lack of dialogue that you just spoke about, was where the plurality dialogues happen. So,
Mm-hmm.
so we kind of dissected the word dialogues, and now here I'm trying to dissect the word plurality. Okay, and therefore, how do we have real dialogues, but have them with points of view which are very diverse? Okay, and I believe that AI, especially as a technology, because it's all pervasive, it's borderless. You know, it just it's not going to respect national borders or age groups or religions or whatever, and so it needs to have a much more global and diverse perspective, and that's why the uh, um, the thought behind plurality dialogues, and that was what I meant by the plurality part of it.
Right. So, you said about this. I love what you said, reframing what singularity is. And a singularity, as you said, Silicon Valley means our point of view is the right point of view. And so leave it to us and we'll develop the tools and we'll tell you how to apply the tools and the world will be all right. It'll be all right for us, of course, the people who control them and get the economic benefits out of them also. And don't worry, chaps, you'll be all right also. So I was, as you were speaking, we were talking about, Lewis Carroll and so on. It's nice to bring in Noel Harari. Um, I'm going to bring in Einstein, who said that, I thought it was he who said it, that you can't solve the complex problems that you're facing or the intractable problems that you're facing by working harder using the same ways of thinking that have caused the problem. So then this has been quoted so many times in the last 2, 3, 5 years when people are talking about we need a new normal for the world, one that is, addressing the inequalities more effectively and climate change, managing it better and so on. A new normal of thinking, a new normal way of thinking. And Einstein has been quoted many times. So I have been citing Einstein, and I was told by somebody Einstein didn't say it. It was said by someone else earlier, and then Einstein said it because it's a very wise and smart thing to say. But in any case, it is a very compelling argument. It's a very scientific argument. The same instrument that has caused the problem should not be used to try and repair the damage caused by that instrument. You talked about prediction, you see, and people are trying to predict where the world will be with AI, and perhaps you and I are trying to do the same. And someone said that the one thing that you cannot predict is the future. And the person who was saying this in a talk just recently that I heard said, I think Oscar Wilde said it, and Oscar Wilde would say things like this. So just after that, I got onto Chat GPT, and I don't use the fancier ones that AI instruments that you use, Jaspreet, to do your search. I just use what you put me onto, Rishikesh Chat GPT. It's fine for what I wanted. So I asked Chat GPT, who said the one thing you can't predict is the future? I didn't give it any prompts. And it came back and said to me, many people reported to have said this, you cannot attribute a wise saying to any one person or to any one place. And so when you talked about, the diversity that we need to bring into discussions about technology, we surely need to bring in perspectives of philosophers, and we talked about perhaps Socrates and philosophers. And you said Eastern perspectives and Western perspectives, Eastern perspectives and Western perspectives. And what the East brings into this dialogue is the philosophical side of things. What the West tends to bring much more is the scientific side of things. And that is why the Dalai Lama, who's been setting up these dialogues amongst scientists and philosophers, the scientists are always the people coming from the West, and the philosophers are the people from the East, from the East. But there's a point here, coming back to Einstein. I say, and it's something you said too, and that's why it occurred to me, you said in the diversity, bringing in the wisdom and voices of indigenous people. And like you mentioned something from Africa, one particular thing, but must be lots more, lots more. So scientists don't listen to people who, in their mind, don't think scientifically. And this has come about since the European Enlightenment, when dear Francis Bacon, father of the Royal Society, or promoter of the idea of the Royal Society, said that with science, man now has the power to control unruly nature.
Yes. Yes.
So the scientists believe they've got this instrument to control everything around them, that's nature, and the powerful countries with the money who then control the science can develop the weapons and the technologies to control the rest. So this is what has been governing the world, that science controlled by certain institutions, certain countries who claim that they have better science, they're more scientific, and we poor chaps, we still think about philosophy and worry about justice. And you mentioned very rightly, there are alternative systems of justice, there are alternate economic systems. And uh, I think the time has come when we talk about governance, justice, and the management of the economy are something which are so central to the governance of our world. So yes, we need to bring in a variety of people, but as you can see, we sort of dismiss some and say, what's the value they're going to add to the discussions? So in our country, we don't want the farmers to be listened to when you're devising agriculture policy. I mean, what do the farmers know? We want to have a labor policy, and we listen to all the investors and they say, well, this is the freedom I want. You got too many rules controlling environment, too many rules about safety, very bureaucracy. Yeah, trust our conscience. We of course are good human beings and we care for human beings, and leave it to us to do that. And at the slightest hint that the markets will not like what they're doing, this capitalist retreat. So all ESG and DEI, there's diversity, equity, and inclusion, and ESG, environment, society, and governance. All the chaps who are promoting it and talking about it in Davos and everywhere have all retreated. No, 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 no. Bad idea. Let the markets rule. Let
Yeah.
capital decide. Let power decide what is good for everybody. So this is the khichdi in which we are, Jaspreet. So with that, I want to come back to what you're hinting at repeatedly, that somehow introducing artificial intelligence as an agent into this khichdi is going to make the dialogue better, the conversation better. You have brought out the need to have many diverse perspectives about deep things, like there are different justice systems, there are different economic systems. There, generally, you might say some Eastern systems and some Western systems. And you had brought in about there are non-scientific ways of thinking, science being defined in the Western European way, and there are scientific ways of thinking defined again in the Western European way, science. And so there are many perspectives about, indeed, fundamental matters like in the African one examples you gave about how people live together and should live together, Ubuntu. So justice, the conduct of themselves and the management of the collective resources, which indigenous communities do very well. So all these I gathered was what we need to have in the dialogue. They're presently not in the dialogues. So the question was that should we at this moment just let the dialogue be conducted by the people in the power and introduce artificial intelligence as an agent in those dialogues? And my concern is that actually we should keep artificial intelligence out of it, because the people who presently are controlling power are the people who are developing and are going to be saying artificial intelligence is going to solve it. So in fact, I would suggest, because of the present situation of the world where rich capital is in charge of technology, thinking it's the singularity, please, in these dialogues about the state of the world and how we should change the way the world is being governed, please listen to the people who haven't been contaminated by technology yet, people in Africa and lower parts of India who yet haven't got into chats on chat GPT or chatbots. So the architecture of the dialogue, and what role, if any, I'm saying, if any, you see artificial intelligence having in the conduct of the dialogue?
Sure. So, I'll keep my question short, Arun, given we have about 15 minutes more.
Yeah,
My answer short in that, and I have a TV appearance after that, so I'll have to get out. But
yeah.
a couple of things, if this reminds me, what you just said reminds me of a very interesting interview with happened with Sam Altman. Okay.
Mhm.
And he was asked, this was almost a year and a half back, and he was asked, you're spending so much money, how much? And he says, some $1 billion. And how are you going to make money? What is your business model? And he said, we'll just spend money. We'll just have GPT-3 and 4 and 5. And maybe at 6 and 7, when we have AGI, artificial general intelligence, I'm going to ask the AGI, how do we make money? Okay. And this he actually said on public stage. People laughed at it. Obviously, it's laughable. But, in that sense, I mean, there are some, I mean, he was saying that I'm going to ask an intelligence superior to mine, but that's how he defines it, about how should we make money, what should be our business model. So my viewpoint is the following here. Okay, I'm not at the extreme where we are today, which says that the AI people decide AI policy or AI governance or AI ethics. But frankly, I'm not also at the extreme which says that there should be no AI people there at all. Okay, I am at somewhere in the middle. Okay, from where I come from, I do believe that, absolutely believe, like I said in the last bit when I was talking, that we need far more diversity of people and dialogues, of opinions that already exist. And I'm actually heartened. I mean, there's everything is not bad out there. I'm actually quite heartened to see that even big techs like Google or Microsoft or one of when I was at Cambridge, for example, there were people from DeepMind, there were people from Microsoft, there were people from Google, and they weren't technologists. Okay, they're now hiring philosophers. One of our professor who's a philosopher was also an employee at Google. They're hiring musicians. Okay, they're hiring artists, and not necessarily the people you would think with computer science degrees or PhDs who are being hired. So I think there, I don't know how after Trump, etc., how it all changes with BEI being considered to be evil, but but at least there was some effort at kind of going beyond just this very typical computer science AI profile to different kinds of profile. Obviously, it didn't go anywhere as far as it should, in terms of what we just spoke about different economic systems, people from different economic systems, or the Ubuntu kind of thing, or indigenous, etc., etc. I think that distance still had to go. But I do believe that, I mean, my viewpoint, I would argue, is that if we do these dialogues and people who decide, etc., do not contain anyone from the AI world, etc., or the people who are actually going to do the implementation in some sense, frankly, it will be just dialogue. Okay, it's not going to be accepted at all. And so, in my view, we need the whole set of people. That's point one. And a quick point two. A lot of people who are labeled as AI people, I've seen, are actually very deep thinkers. Okay. And when you read what they have written, etc., some of them are very deep thinkers. They have, much like the best scientists, the best mathematicians, were actually philosophers at heart. We can go back into history and think of so many of them. Today, the best scientists, best mathematicians, more than scientists, the best mathematicians become AI people. AI is mathematics, period. It's mathematics. Okay, and they become AI people because that's where the most exciting research is. That's where you get money, etc. And these people are working at that highest level of mathematics, are actually touching philosophy, and they're touching many other aspects which are beyond just pure AI. And so I personally believe some of them actually have a huge diversity of thought themselves. They're just not allowed to kind of express it and use it. And so I would definitely include them in the dialogue. So that's where I come from.
You're labeling again. You said the insight I got was the word you've been using. We should have AI people in the dialogue. And my question was, should we have AI in the dialogue?
Okay. I understand. I understand.
But
I understand.
you've
Yeah.
given the answer that I was seeking.
Yeah.
We must have different perspectives of human beings, and some people
Yeah.
are very knowledgeable about something, and they may be advocates of it also. And all of us, what we're knowledgeable about, we advocate it. That's fine. And since we are concerned about AI, we better have people who understand AI in the dialogue. But these people, when they're brought into the dialogue, they should have that quality which you are exhibiting and which you say you went to Cambridge for, is to listen to people's views about, like you said, philosophy, ethics, justice. They know AI, and you know AI very well, and you're going to jump off this now and explain uh, DeepSeek to a lot of people. The point, as you were trying to do, Jaspreet, I'm saying trying to do, and you succeeded, not completely, but quite well. And you started that discussion saying a lot of people there are masters of AI. They are very interested in how AI they could apply in their businesses to do good to the world, or perhaps, make more in their ventures. And you said, no, we are not going to talk about what is happening in the world of AI. We're going to talk what's happening in the world. Okay. And through the perspectives, as you said, of the world and systems thinking, uh, philosophy. And we did it. But I can see when you talk hereafter, thereafter, on the chat, there is a group set up under the name of Rishikesh Plurality Dialogues. And I'm afraid all they're talking about is the excitement about the latest this and that and so on, honey bits and so on and so forth. So you can see what my point is, that yes, we must bring, like you brought in,
Yeah.
God for caring people who know the technology, but the dialogue mustn't be taken over by even the people who control the technology. And certainly, therefore, I can't leave it to the technology. We human beings have to come in with our carings,
Yeah.
our concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah. And different people have different concerns at different points in their civilizations or their personal lives. We have to see the world as it is in reality. Hmm? And that you can only know by listening to the people who are living in the realities of the world presently. And you must listen to people who don't have the privileges that we have. I'm talking now people like us. We can live comfortably and have discussions about things and then have a drink in the evening afterwards, as we did and enjoyed, and then good food guaranteed. But the people for whose sake we want to find a solution don't have even this. And so have them in the discussion. And it comes to, again, to my mind, just be talking about dialogues now. I have been for 20 years been invited to organize dialogues between people, poor people, the people who we believe are not yet properly educated, but for whose sake we're trying to find solutions and get them into the same room as the policymakers who say, look, we are finding the solutions for them. And those people say outside that thank you so much for inviting us. You invited us into this conference room in this hotel. They feel so awkward. We're showing off our
Right.
comfort and our privilege. So power is present by where the dialogue is conducted, and who knows how to be comfortable in that setting. Those other chaps are so uncomfortable, they can't even get, they're just getting over the discomfort to be able to express themselves. So the dialogues is a matter of where the dialogue is. Everybody must feel equally comfortable. And in the conduct of the dialogue, no point of view should be allowed to overpower other points of view. So that's the curation of the dialogue. And that's the art the world needs. We need more
Difficult
creators
art.
of
Yeah.
dialogues and
Yeah.
like you were doing. Huh? But as
Oh,
I point out, it's not an easy sell, my friend. It's not easy. So, given that, what are you going to do and what can I help you to do to improve the
yeah.
dialogue about artificial intelligence? Because I mentioned about you can't predict the future. There's a reason you cannot predict the future. One is that the futures are shaped by many systems coming together, many complex forces coming together. And unless you allow an understanding of all the forces together that shape the system, you cannot, based on the trend of any one big force, whether it's the GDP, the way it's growing, or the amount of trade that's going up in the world, predict what the future is going to look like, or the pace at which artificial intelligence is developing. It can't by itself tell you the state of the world. The consequences of artificial intelligence on the other systems that constitute the world and their reactions and preventions of artificial intelligence doing its own thing is what is going to shape the world. So the discussion right now in the whole world is what shall we do about social media? What shall we do about artificial intelligence? This dialogue, which must bring in philosophy, justice, yes, economics into it, and technology, how will this dialogue be conducted? Are you going to do this? Where are you going to do this? Who are you going to have in it?
You know, those are all very good questions, Arun. And unfortunately, for all of them, I don't have very good answers at this point of time. For me at least, and for a lot of us, what we started doing around the river Ganges, as you mentioned, was for me a trial balloon, an experiment. Hopefully the beginning of a process, but also something to learn and learn from. And what I do know is that, it's necessary. What I do know is that it needs to be sometimes expanded to even people, many more people beyond the group, and many more people, as you rightly said, who are not necessarily a part of these things and at any point of time. I'm struggling with the continuity part of it, how it's because it cannot be episodic. in that sense. And, there needs to be some kind of a continuity. But I think a lot of the answers to the questions that you posed are ones which I would honestly work with people like you and, other wise people to kind of say that, okay, fine, we put a mark on the sand, a line on the sand, whatever way you call it. But then, it isn't enough. The sands shift. Okay. And so, what is it that how do we take it forward? I wish I could give you a very more concrete, confident answer. All I know is that we need to, but how and some of it, do we do just the same thing again? I am not very sure. Okay. Just keep the same thing with the same people. Not very sure, honestly. Okay. Because do we put some more structure into it? Not. How do we expand it? How do we make it more continuous? Is I think a conversation which I would have with you, Vivek, who's been a part of our discussions, and a few others to see, how we could take it forward. Beyond that, I don't have an answer right now.
Neither do I, but I think we have located the structures necessary, and it's a process, as you said. It can't be a single discussion.
Yes.
There'll have to be
Yes.
many discussions in many places, and each discussion or the many discussions will come to the next set of questions, yeah, to which we can then go deeply. So there'll be no answer possible within, a day or two, or even within a week of a lot of people coming together. It is collectively understanding what do we know now and what are our concerns, and therefore the questions that we next, as we convene, we will answer. And that is not for the collection only. Each of us comes out of it and saying, I've understood something, now I need to learn
Yeah.
something more. And I was here, went in there, sure that I know, but I come out with a question. And that's what the art of learning is to find a better question to which you apply yourself and say, I want to listen to people who are better than me at this subject. So you become a learning person. And the difference, I think, between a stone and a human being is that a human being is curious about things around and learning, learning about things around. And since time is up, since you talked about the line in the sand, it is coming back to Walrus and the Carpenter. I think the poor oysters, they should be allowed to put a line in the sand and say, we are going to talk about things that concern us on our side and not about things that interest you and you seem to know a lot about on your side. So there's a line in the sand about what is not going to overpower the others. The walrus and the carpenter better not overpower the oysters.
It's interesting, huh? That I just brought it up. The exact thing says the sea was wet as wet could be, the sands were dry as dry. So there's always the sand. And then the next line is even, I mean, it alludes to AI. You could not see a cloud because no cloud was in the sky. All AI lives in the cloud, right? I think it will be great to dissect this poem in this, in this new, with this new context. But yeah, I agree with you. We need the oysters in the part of the dialogue. Thank you very much, Arun, for setting me thinking all over again. And hopefully we continue the conversation.
I will look forward to that very much. And thank you, Jaspreet. Thank you very much. All the best. You're going to explain deep to
for the nth time.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.